If you're looking to start your own business online, leave the corporate gig behind, maybe you want to reinvent yourself or think of it as a second career and you're over 40, and hang with me because I'm going to help provide some key insights that absolutely helped me that I wish somebody would have told me sooner. I'm Patty Dominguez, the founder of moreleverage.io, and we help service-based entrepreneurs streamline their lead flow so that they can leverage the power of automation, following up the right way, powered by artificial intelligence. And I'm glad you're here. So just a brief bit about me. I have been an entrepreneur now for over 11 years. I once upon a time worked in corporate and Fortune 50, and this topic of entrepreneurship is near and dear to my heart. For so many years, I'd have people reach out to me randomly on LinkedIn asking me, how did you do it? And at the time, I didn't really understand what they meant around how did I leave my job in corporate and step into entrepreneurship? Because let's face it, it's very unsure. There's a lot of ups and downs. And if you aren't really equipped with the right mindset, it is going to be a tough ride. So if you've been in that space where you're quiet quitting, or really thinking, how much longer am I going to deal with this job and just not feeling fulfilled? I work with a lot of women over 40. So we have that camaraderie where we're like, yeah, I was really at my wit's end. Then you're in the right place. And I really want to share some inspiration with you. And it could be somebody famous like Susie Batiste, who is the founder of Potpourri. She started that Potpourri brand. It's like the spray that you put in the bathroom. She started that business at 43, and she had been bankrupt twice prior. And she said that the reason why she was so thankful for that experience of bankruptcy is that it eliminated her fear of failure. And when you really recognize and fine tune that so much of this journey is mental, it is a mental journey, you're going to recognize how to pick and choose where your battles are. Or maybe you're thinking of starting a business and people around you are thinking, why is she thinking about starting a business when you're kind of in your home stretch of your career? And a lot of your colleagues are maybe winding down or thinking, and I'll never forget, I got this too when I was in corporate and I would ask people, how are you doing? And it'd be like, I'm hanging in there. Or they would say, for example, this one guy, I remember asking him, hey, how's it going? He's like, 8 more years. And I'm like, what do you mean 8 more years? At the time I was like in my early 30s. So I didn't have real context around retiring, but he said to me, 8 more years and I can get out of here. And that was a really significant moment for me because I realized, I'm like, God, I don't want to be like that. I do not want to be like him, because to think that you're just buying time until you can leave. And so if you're in that state of quiet quitting, I'm just going to offer you a perspective because I was there once upon a time. It was in a different environment for sure. In 2008, the market had crashed. My husband and I were both unemployed a good portion of 2009. And it really made me realize that all the steps that I had taken in order to feel like I had secured my future, protect my family, it really didn't mean a whole lot. And for me, the biggest book that changed my life, and you've probably heard it too, is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, just because it helped to open my eyes to what is possible and how I had the formula wrong. I thought it was about going to school, getting a good job, and then I went and got my MBA, and I thought that that was going to be enough. And while that is absolutely important to have an education, if that is what you value, what is more important is really understanding what kind of a business structure are you building for yourself. So in 2009, much to my surprise, when I received the pink slip and I was laid off due to redundancy, I recognized that everything that I thought that I had prepped in my life was absolutely not going to save me. And I really vowed in that moment that I was never going to let that happen. Now, at the time, going into 2009, I was extremely confused around how to make this happen because let's face it, they don't teach you how to be an entrepreneur in school. Right? It's not something that was taught, certainly not when I was in school. I'm a Gen Xer. So as a result, I had this inkling like, what can I do? What can I look for? And the first thing that I should have done, this is tip number one, it wasn't until I had hired a coach. Now, he wasn't necessarily that type of a coach where I was looking to transition out of a job, but it was a coach that started to get me on the way. And one thing is for sure is that nowadays there's coaches for everything, literally everything: wealth coach, health coach, mindset coach, energy coach, any kind of coach. And so I really, really highly recommend reaching out to a coach that can help you really figure out what makes sense for you. What are your values? What are your priorities? How do you see yourself? How do you see yourself from an identity standpoint? Because the one thing that was really difficult for me initially when I first quit my job is that I didn't have the proper entrepreneurial identity. I was so used to being in a corporate job for so long, trading time for money. I knew that regardless of what my performance was, every 2 weeks I would get a paycheck. And so that abruptly stopped. Now, my husband and I had saved up some money for me to have a bit of a cushion while I got my bearings in entrepreneurship. So that's always a good idea. This is not financial advice, but I do recommend having some kind of a safety net. And so one of the things that was really important is just to be around other people, like-minded people. So find your community. That would be tip number 2, find a community of like-minded people, because people around me that I had been with in corporate absolutely thought I was nuts, that I would quit my job, that I was really in a good place in my career. And I just made the decision, and it was really scary. So it was really overwhelming. I felt alone. It is very much like going through a death. You go through oh my God, I'm so excited, I left my job. Then you go into, holy shit, I left my job. And then you're sad about leaving your job. And then you're like, oh my God, what did I do? So you go through excitement, and it's surreal. You feel alone, and you're scared, and you're overwhelmed, and it's just a new skill set. So being around people who are like-minded helps you snap out of it. Now, I'm going to share one of the biggest moments for me, and I share it time and time again because it was that impactful. Is I was at a conference around other entrepreneurs, which was really exciting to be in that environment. So I was, finding my way. And the best conversations happen after the conference, right after the main people hanging out at the hotel bar or going to dinner. That's where the best conversations happen. That's where the big connections happen. And I remember being around somebody that I had been introduced to, and he introduced me to a lot of people at the table and said, hey, Patty here, she quit her job. So cool. Like, she left the rat race or whatever. And I remember being around these people, and it was about a group of 6 guys. And I said something really cringy at the time. I didn't even realize, but I was like, oh my God, I'm so freaked out about quitting my job. I don't know if I made the right decision. It's like, and I just kind of started verbal vomiting all over them about my fear at the time. And so the one thing that helped me a lot tremendously, this was a breakthrough moment, is from somebody that I had met. His name is Kurt. And he said something really, really significant at the time. He said to me, well, do you have any savings? Do you have anything to kind of back you up, like a cushion? I said, yeah, I do. And he's like, okay, well, how much time do you have? And I said, like about 10 months of salary. And he's like, and where are you in that process? I'm like month 2. And he's like, he couldn't believe it. He's like, what are you worried about? He's like, entrepreneurs create new money. So that was so significant, because that one statement snapped me out of my thinking that it was a trading time for money. It is not. It is a situation where entrepreneurs could create new money. So that was so powerful. And I got it in that moment. I was like, okay, I can do this, right? I had to just snap myself out of the employee identity into an entrepreneur identity. So important. That is one of the biggest tips I can give you. The next tip is to make sure that you understand the power of leverage. Now, this is what I mean is, after I got my head on straight, I was able to replace my 6-figure income pretty quickly, which I'm very thankful for. But early on in my entrepreneur deal, I was burning the candle at both ends. I felt that I had to do everything by myself, and only I could do it. And so I really, really struggled because I was spread thin. So I went through adrenal fatigue. I thought only I could do things. I had control issues, And as a coach of mine at the time said, your problem is that you are so in control of control, or so you think, that you're out of control. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I guess I am. I am out of control. And I also had this other underlying mode of operating where I was a heartaholic. So as a result, I let go of that identity. That did not come by easy. But one of the things that was really powerful for me was a book that I read by Dan Sullivan. It is called Who Not How. And he basically said that anytime that there's a bottleneck in your business, it is time for a who. Really successful entrepreneurs understand that. And they understand that their time is the most valuable thing ever. Like time, right? We only have a finite amount of time. So you value time and you have to honor time and not say, oh, I'm just killing time. No, there is no just killing time. So that was a really significant shift that I had, that I knew I had to let go of control. I couldn't do it all. And then it was time for me to find more than just one who. I had to find a couple who's. And so in that process, I was able to hire, and there's a whole process around hiring that I practiced through trial and error. I'm really, really happy to say that I have found great people on my team. We have a wonderful team culture, which is really important to me. And part of that whole process was in really letting go of control. So that's my next tip. And as I mentioned earlier in that tip, it's about creating leverage. So leverage is absolutely essential. One of the things that I also discovered was it's not a matter of buying into different types of programs and knowing the tactics behind what it is that you're doing. In other words, there's a lot of different marketing programs out in the marketplace that talk about how to launch and doing this type of launch. It is about strategically understanding where are your leverage points, right? That is where you can really create greater outcomes when you have more leverage. I was so inspired by the thought process once I really understood the power of leverage that I rebranded and I call my business More Leverage, moreleverage.io, because I look at, to me, being a successful entrepreneur means that you have more leverage of time, of money, and energy. And when you have those three components, well, it's a pretty nice life. So that are just full of significant tips that I've had. I hope it helps you too. And also, one of the other things that you definitely should consider, and I'll leave you with this tip, is you will want to most definitely highlight you. Don't try to copycat what other people are doing. Do you. And when you understand the premise of really owning your space, finding the white space, positioning yourself in a light where you're an expert and people gravitate to you because of how you are saying things, you're going to get really clear on your messaging and connect the dots for people on how you can help, right? It's about who you're helping, what problem you're solving, and how it is that you're solving that. All of that is part of the whole positioning of your personal brand as a service-based entrepreneur. Again, that's mostly who I help. Well, it's a really powerful thing. So I have decided to give away one of my positioning courses that I have. I used to charge for it, and now I've decided to give it away because I see so many people doing copycat marketing, and that is really a shame, because you should be highlighting who you are and how you do things instead of doing what that guy's doing, because you're only ever going to be the second best version. And we don't want that. We want you to position yourself uniquely, stand out, get a little braggy. And so I talk about all of these types of things on podcasts that I used to have called Positioning to Profit. And now I'm going to be doing more of that here on this channel. So hit the subscribe. Thank you so much. Right below in the description, you can find out how to grab that positioning super bundle for yourself. I invite you to check it out, because if you're struggling and maybe you get yourself caught up in saying, I don't know how to say what I need to say, if I'm at a networking event, or explain what it is that I do, or is my niche profitable, or how do I find a niche, you're definitely going to want to grab the positioning super bundle. It is in the description below. Go ahead, check it out. I promise you it's going to help you gain some clarity. All right, with that, thank you so much for checking out this video. Leave your comment below. I'd love to know what you think. How long have you been an entrepreneur? Or if you are thinking about jumping into entrepreneurship, what questions do you have? I'll personally respond to those comments. And here's to more leverage.